Hi there, it's Nicole here today, and I have a card showcasing the great outdoors. It's a fun little forest themed card, and I've combined some stamps and images and dies from the Neat and Tangled Lumberjack Love stamp set with one of my favorite background stamps of all time, the awesome pine trees from Impression Obsession, which it's a 6x6 sized stamp set with these great pine trees. It is an older stamp set, so if it is hard to find, I am linking here in the video to some kind of similar tree images from Tim Holtz that might be a little bit more readily available. To start my card, I have die cut 2 rectangles from some smooth white cardstock using a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die. And from one of those, I used a pretty pink posh kind of sloping hill die to create my landscape bottom. Then using the Misty Stamp Positioner tool, I am lining up my background so that I can stamp those pine trees on my background design. However, I am going to mask off the area from the stitching line out using a little post-it tape to keep that area white. This is an A2 sized rectangle, so I want that little bit of a white border. I've inked up my pine trees with the olive ink from Simon Says Stamp. And I love this pine tree background. It is so awesome and a great layering background type of image. So there's kind of what it's going to look like. I've got my background, I've got my sloped border, and then I've just laid out my stamps to make sure everything's going to fit real nice. For my landscape ground here, I am going to ink up the little border with the Ground Espresso Distress ink. Get that nice and dark. I did mask off the 3 sides so that it keeps with that nice white border around the edge of the card. Then I'm going to stamp my boy and girl images on some smooth white cardstock using Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink. This is a great ink for Copic coloring. I did end up having to stamp these images again. I had a marker that I must have overfilled with a refill, and when I went to color part of the boy image, it dripped right in the center of it and ruined it, which kind of stinks. So I did have to start over coloring. That's why the paper changes partway through coloring this little boy image. I am using Copic markers to color in all of my images here today. I did stamp the tree stumps and the bird as well. Originally, I was just going to use those 4 images from the Neat and Tangled Lumberjack Love stamp set. All of the Copic marker colors I'm using are shown across the bottom of the screen for easy reference. I love the little buffalo check plaid of his shirt, and so that is why I chose to color that in first. Then I'm going to go ahead and color in my skin tones, move on to the hair, and then finish the rest of the design. Because there are so many Copic colors incorporated in these particular images, I did kind of try to keep the addition of multiple colors limited. So I used the same hair colors for both the boy and the girl. I tried to implement the blues that I'm going to use in his blue jeans elsewhere, so I used them in the bird, things like that, just to kind of keep it somewhat under control. My desk started getting crazy with the amount of markers I had out. When you use 2 or 3 shades per color, it can add up really fast. I am coloring in the jeans. I started with B91 and then I'm going to B99, which is much, much darker. And I'll blend out that color a little bit with the B95. I find if you work kind of quickly, especially with this particular color combination, that B99, because the paper was still saturated with B91, kind of blended on its own and it added some really nice shading. And that B95 just kind of blends it all out. Great combination for blue jeans. I'm going to move on to his stocking cap. I'm doing a red and gray color combination, and the brim of his stocking cap is going to be red and gray stripes Again, keeping the same red colors I used for his shirt, and then the grays are going to be used kind of throughout. So darker there on the brim, and then I'll do a little bit lighter for the solid area, just darkening it up around the edges. I'll also incorporate those warm grays into his axe. Just start with my lightest color, add my darkest, and then blend out with the mid-tone, and then go back with my lightest and blend all three together. You can do that as many times as you need to. You may give it a little time in between blending to make sure that the colors don't bleed outside the lines. The axe handle, I'm coloring in with some earth tones in browns, E57 and E59. Pretty small area, it doesn't really need 3 shades. For his boots, I wanted to do something a little different. Where there are so many browns and blacks or grays already, especially with the other images I'm going to be coloring, I thought it'd be fun to make them kind of look more yellowish, kind of those hiker type boots. So I'm using some yellow-red colors, and I think they add a great color near the bottom of the image. I'll go ahead and move over to the little girl image. Again, color in her skin tone, blend that all out first. A lot of times when I'm working with people images, I like to start with the skin tones first. It just is a great starting point to work your way out. I'll go ahead and move on to her hair after that. Like I said earlier, I did stick to the same color combination for her hair as I did the boy. And it was just simply kind of maybe even a laziness factor. That way I didn't have to pull out some additional colors. Sometimes those Copic marker supply list colors get kind of long. Where there's so much Copic coloring in this particular card, I just kind of kept it easy. These colors were already on my desk. I did take a little R20 to the cheeks on both the boy and the girl to give them some rosy cheeks. She has that cute little deer headband on, so I colored in the ears there with some browns, pink for the insides of the ears. I'm going to kind of leave the rest of it alone for just a minute and go ahead and move on to her dress. I decided to go ahead and color it in those same 2 red shades I used for the boy's shirt and the band on his stocking cap. I love the reds. I think they provide a nice pop of color. I'm going to leave that band around the middle and the little apron bib or whatever it is there in the center. I'm coloring in her boots with the same colors I used for the boy. Sort of maybe even looking like Ugg boots or something. For the reindeer antlers, I'm just going to use some light colors. I decided for the headband that's holding those reindeer antlers in place to color that in with red as well. Nice pop of color up there. Some very light warm gray colors to accent the under part of her skirt and the little bib apron or whatever it is there. Darker warm gray colors for the band around the middle. Darken it up with maybe some mid-tone warm gray markers. I did add a little warm gray to the antlers as well. I'm going to trim out those Lumberjack Love coordinating dies using some wire cutter scissors and die cut those. I always like to take the Sakura black gel pen and add detail to the eyes. I'll go ahead and color in the tree stump and bird next. Again, the browns I'm using for the tree stump are the same browns I used for the axe handle. I purposely picked these 2 colors. I thought that they would work well for the tree stump as well. Darken up some of the areas with that darker of the 2 colors. Then I can blend that all out as I move along. So adding in the dark, blending it out with my lighter color, and then going in with much lighter earth tones to the center part of the tree. So you can definitely see the difference in color. Those are just a couple of colors I used for the kids' hair. For the bird itself, this is where I'm going to pull in those same blue colors I used for his blue jeans for the majority of the bird, using some of the yellow reds that I used for the boots for his beak, one of those colors. And I'm going to also use those for the tummy area of the bird. Give it a nice little contrast. Make sure I liked how that was going to look. I did pull in one lighter yellow red for the bird that I didn't use on the boots. And I'm going to build up that color on the bird, so I did darken it up a little bit and then blend it out again. Once I have the bird and the tree stump completely colored, I am going to die cut both of these images as well. And this is kind of where I realized to the right of the card I needed something else because I want the boy and girl to be exactly in the center. So I am going to go ahead and stamp my greeting while I'm pondering what I want to do there. And I was going to stamp the greeting just straight across, but I think if you follow the curve of that landscape, it's going to be much more interesting. So I just laid out my greeting at that slight angle or curve, ink it up with Versamark ink and stamp that right along that curved edge. You can see it's slightly to the left, and that's for a reason. I'm going to sprinkle on some white embossing powder. Then I'm going to take one of these small solid heart images from the Lumberjack Love stamp set and stamp it at the end of the greeting. And that's going to just be a nice little punctuation mark, plus it's going to add a pop of color. I did stamp it with the Versamark ink, but I'm going to sprinkle on some Rouge Red embossing powder there. Then I'll go ahead and heat this entire thing up to heat set my greeting. I like to make sure that my heat tool is good and hot before I bring it to the paper. And then I'll just move it back and forth real quick until that's completely melted. You can see the whole design of the card really taking shape now. I decided to go ahead and put together what I already have. So I will attach my landscape along the bottom edge of the card. I'll attach that tree stump. Some of the images will be in front of that border. Some are going to go behind. I like to layer them as much as possible to give it a little bit more of a lifelike type of look. Using a nice strong adhesive to attach everything in place. So I'll do the boy and girl. The bird is much smaller than the other images, so instead of a tape runner, I am going to use some glue dots to attach him to the card design. Just such cute images. I absolutely love these neat and tangled stamp sets with little people images. So fun. People or critters. I did stamp the bear from the same stamp set because I think he will be a great addition to the right of the card and fill in that area really nicely. So I'm coloring him in with Copic markers, again keeping very much to only colors that I already had out on my desk. That makes it super easy. The colors I am using are shown across the bottom of the screen. Going in with my dark color, blending that back out with my base color. I did use a little bit lighter color for his kind of muzzle and then the tummy. And then I'll go in and add some little dot detail to add some additional interest to this image. I went in and added even some more darker places here and there where I felt like it needed a little bit more. Once I have him colored, I will go ahead and use the coordinating die to die cut the bear as well. I like to use a little Post-it tape to hold those in place and run them through my machine so they don't shift. I will attach him right there to the right of the image. And there is so much going on in the bottom half of this scene card that I really felt like the top of the card needed something. I didn't want to overpower it with a ton more embellishment. There is plenty going on in the main area or scene part of this card, but it needed a little something, I thought. So there is a great little speech bubble in the Lumberjack Love stamp set that says timber. And I thought that would be fun, so I stamped that on some white cardstock using my black ink, and then I'll go ahead and die cut it just as is. I'm not going to add any additional color or anything to it. You definitely could if you wanted to, but I kind of want to look like it's coming from the trees somewhere, so it's going to be up there in that upper left corner of the card. I used a little foam adhesive dots from American Crafts to give it some dimension. And then for a pop of color, I'm going to stamp a couple of the open heart designs from the same stamp set up near the top of my card and color those in with my red Copic markers. Super fast and easy coloring, but just that tiny pop of color near the top of the card really finish off the design and complete the whole scene. Once this panel is all finished, I did add a little wink of Stella to the hearts and the axe blade. I will take a top fold white card base. I'm going to go ahead and attach or place some really strong adhesive there on my card base itself, and then place my rectangular panel right there in place. And there is my finished card design. Thanks for watching this video showcasing a card featuring the great outdoors. The supplies I've used are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more cards featuring Neat and Tangled that you might be interested in. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.